everyone, welcome back to Prana at Work. For those of you who are new here today on my channel, my name is Maria and I'm an American yoga instructor and corporate professional, and I've been living in Paris, France for about 4 years now. This channel really offers lots of yoga, Pilates, and meditation classes that you can do while you are discovering France. So the classes are really aimed for busy people who want to travel and see France at the same time. So if you are into yoga and traveling, and if you're a big Francophile, you are in the right place. The channel also offers lots of testimonials about expat life in France, and yeah, so if you're interested in this, please keep on watching. Today's video, we're going to talk about how to learn French. My 5 top tips on how to learn this beautiful language. Now, before we get started, French is really, really hard to learn. And you can get the full story on my blog about why it was so hard for me to learn French and why in general it's so hard for people to learn French in my blog that you can find the link to right here. So, why is it so hard to learn French? Well, there are a couple of reasons, and I really wanted to touch upon this before giving you guys the 5 kind of secrets and tips about what is the best way to learn French. Now, the first reason why it's so hard to learn French is because French grammar literally sucks. I mean, it's so complicated and there's so many rules, and then there's so many exceptions to those rules, and then there's so many conjugations that you can do to all kinds of words, and then you have to be able to understand if a person is talking about in future tense, in past tense, in conditional, which means they would have liked to done it, if they're talking in subjunctif imparfait, so it's a really fancy way to talk about the past, or if they want to talk about being regretful, or imparfait, which is a description of the passé composé of something that has been done really long ago. I mean, it's so complicated, really. It made my head spin when I first came to this country. The second reason why it's also so hard to understand French and learn French is because the accent is really hard to understand as well, and it's really hard to mimic. Now, French is really, really beautiful and melodic and so romantic, so when I first heard it, I just immediately wanted to start speaking it right away because it's so beautiful. But the reason that it's so hard for foreigners to kind of speak French fluently is because the accent is so hard to master. And if you miss one little accent for one little word, it can mean something entirely different. In some ways, more sexual. So you could be seen as someone a bit creepy when you say a word completely wrong. So, what are the best ways to kind of get around this, and what are the best 5 ways to learn French? So here we go. The first way really is to take classes. Because French is filled with mysterious grammatical rules, it's really nice to understand just the basics of French and understand where these rules come from and in what situation is best to put these rules in practice. When I first came to France, I actually had 1 year of French school. I went to a school called École Étoile, my first year in France, and there I basically learned all of the necessary grammar to speak French today. So I learned how to conjugate words, I learned how to conjugate sentences properly, I learned how to write more grammatically, write better, and so this really, really helped me in my current job today, where I have to write emails in French, and in grad school where I had to write papers in French, and that really, really legitimized me as someone living in this country by, you know, I got a job in French, which is great, but it really, really helps you to speak the language and understand it better. So definitely enroll yourself, take a MOOC if you want. I mean, I did, I think, 5 MOOCs in French when I was a student in grad school when I first got here. So do a MOOC, get some books on French grammar. I mean, I really think that taking classes, at least online or, you know, in school, is really important to help you master just the gist of the French language, because it is really, really, really difficult. The second thing that you have to do is you have to speak to as many French people, as many Frenchies as you can. When I first got here, I spent my time speaking French to everyone I could find on the street. So if I went to the post office, if I went to go to the grocery store, if I went to go to a cafe, if I went out to a bar with some of my friends, I would make really an effort to speak French to as many French people as possible. Why is this so important? This is really, really important because when you speak to a French person, not only do you understand their accent better, but you understand how they speak and you understand certain slang words and certain expressions that you wouldn't otherwise get to know if you're just hitting the books. In a way, you're kind of putting all of that hard work that you learned from your books into practice. And this is super, super important because when you talk to French people, they talk really fast. Sometimes they even like bite and eat their words and you don't even understand half of what they're saying when you first get here. But when you talk to them, you become a more natural speaker, I would say, and you become really better and at ease at speaking naturally because, you know, as someone who, this isn't my first language, I mean, French is really hard. And when you first start speaking it, of course, you're really, really timid, right? You're scared. And this really allows you to kind of get out of your comfort zone and come up to people and say, bonjour, hey, salut, and like start talking to them. And this really, really helped me as an expat really to get out of my shell, and it improved my French level really way to the top, and I have awesome French friends now, so there's nothing to lose. The third tip, which is perhaps my favorite, is watch a lot of French movies. Now, French movies are perfect because they're romantic and cheesy and just so French. And you know, when I was learning French, this was my favorite part because I just had my popcorn and I would just sit and I would watch these beautiful French actresses, and I would literally just hear these beautiful French people speaking, and I think this is my favorite apprentissage of learning French. The reason why French movies really, really help you learn the language is that because, you know, they're kind of like hearing people talk, but you can pause, you can replay, you can fast forward, and you can rewind. So if you don't understand something, you can always go back and you can always listen and then, you know, Google it and see what does that mean. And that really helped me in understanding more words, more vocabulary, more expressions, more slang, which a lot of people use slang here, so you have to know that. And I really started to understand, you know, the phrases people use. If I would hear that in a movie, be like, oh yeah, someone just said that, you know, I would connect things in my head. And I also really practice the accent as well. So when you're speaking to people, obviously, but when you're really watching a movie, that kind of stays in your head and you get to practice the accent more and more. And that comes out when you speak as well, wherever you are, in the streets of Paris or in the streets of France, or if you're back in the States or wherever you may come from. We're all from different walks of life here. But if you meet a French person, you really have the impression that you're speaking better because you know, we're mammals. We mimic what we hear. So when I mimicked the way I heard that French actresses and actors talk, I actually learned how to speak French better, and I learned great French expressions that really helped me too. Listening to French music. This is the fourth amazing tip that I have for you. So the best way to listen to French music, in my opinion, is with a big red glass of wine, and you just sit and you listen. And you know, my favorite song, my favorite French song is Les Mots Bleus by Christophe, and I'm gonna link that song down below because he is my absolute favorite. When I listen to these songs, it's really important as someone who's learning French because the singers in all of these French songs, they really, really pronunciate the words. Why is that important? Because when you hear the pronunciation, you learn to pronunciate the words in French better, and you learn to do the accent better. You also understand the words, and when you go back and you look at the lyrics, you see, you know, oh, this is what they sang about, this is what the metaphor means, and blah, blah, blah. So when you listen to these songs, this is also a really amazing way to kind of sit down, try to understand what they say. When I just moved to France, I had, you know, a really big problem because I didn't open my mouth enough. So French people would tell me, I can't understand what you're saying because you're not opening your mouth enough, because in order to speak good French, you have to really pronunciate and make all of your syllables heard because it's such a hard language to master. So after I was listening to these songs, especially Christophe and Jacques Brel, like the best French songs I think in my opinion, I really started to understand how to pronunciate, open my mouth a little bit better, and allow that French to go out into the world and speak it with other French people so they would understand me. So that was really, really good tip as well that I got and that I used. The fifth one is really special to me, the fifth tip, because it's all about reading. I love to read, and you know, I must have read so many books, but when I first got here, I tried all the other steps above and I was like, okay, that should be fine. And I never really thought that I should try to read in French. Reading in French is really daunting. It might seem really scary to someone who's trying to learn French for the first time because the grammar in some of the books might be really difficult. What I suggest is that you push yourself and you try, because when I first, for instance, got my first French book, I mean, it wasn't like a novel, it wasn't Moby Dick or anything really complicated. It was a really easy book. I think it was The Giver by Lewis Lowry, but I got it like a French translated version. When you read, you start to connect these phrases in your head and you create the storyline in French in your head and you start to think in French. The way you know that you become a guru in a language actually is because you start thinking in that language and not translating in your head when you're speaking it. So when I was reading these books in French, I started to have this habit of thinking in French and reiterating what I was thinking in French to French speakers. So this really helped me. So what I would suggest is really just get a French book. Whatever you want, you can get it translated from, as like I did, I got like an American book translated into French. You can get a French classic, for instance, if you want. Philosophy might be a bit difficult in French because they go on tangents. I always had like an app on my phone, like I would use Google Translate if I didn't understand a word or if I didn't understand a phrase, and that really helped me as well to kind of connect the phrases in my head, and that was really nice. So definitely get a book and start reading. Wherever you may be, have a nice coffee on the terrace on Saturday afternoon and really push yourself, because that really helped me in understanding and speaking French. Now, French is really hard. You guys, I've been here for 4 years and I make mistakes all the time, so please don't pressure yourself into thinking that I'm gonna speak French like awesome, I'm not gonna make any mistakes, because even the French make mistakes. Like when I was coming home and showing my boyfriend my French homework and I was like, I don't understand, what does this mean? He was like, I don't know. So even the French make mistakes in French because it's so complicated. So please don't, you know, push yourself, don't try to be a perfectionist, and just make mistakes when you talk. And that's really how you learn, is that if French people come up to you and correct you and say, hey, actually say this instead, really take that into account, and you learn as you go. You know, it's a never-ending process, so really be open with this apprentissage and with the way you learn this language, because it might seem really hard, but in the end, if you make it fun, you can speak this romantic language really in no time. So that's all I got for you guys today. Once again, if you're more interested in my tips on how to learn French, please do check out the link to my blog below. I just published a new article especially about the best ways to learn French, so definitely check that out. It's in the description down below. And I'll see you guys in just a couple of days for a new class. Bye.